Hey, what's up people? In today's video I want to talk about large EDC folders. I stick to a couple of limitations in this category. First of all of these knives you had to be able to open them one-handedly, and they need to have some sort of locking system, so all the slip joints in the size category are not in this video. All the Buck 110 style video knives are not in this video as well because they're not one-handed deployable. And blade length had to be 4 inches or 10 centimeters or slightly bigger. There are some 4.5 inch blades in here, I think. So yeah, everything above 4 inches was alright, but everything below 4 inches, like the Spyderco Enduro for instance, it's slightly below 4 inches, is not in this video because yeah, like I said, I had to stick to some limitations. Although I think the Enduro kind of belongs to this size range, it really feels like a 4-inch blade in terms of how you use it. And yeah, but the Enduro is a great knife, you already know that. It has been talked about quite a lot in the knife community, and I think it certainly belongs in the category of a good knife. But yeah, in this video, no Enduro, no knives that are slightly under 4 inches. The thing about large EDC folders, which is by the way a size that I really like to carry, I think it's a great size. You get a lot of reach, you get a lot of cutting edge. The thing with most of these knives in this category is that they are slightly heavier. So if you think about the 3.5 inch knives, they can get like 3 ounces or 3.5 ounces. A lot of these 4-inch bladed knives, they are in between 4 and 5 ounce knives, so 150, 140 grams sort of. So they are a little bit heavier to carry. They're also oftentimes a little bit wider in the pocket. And to me that's not necessarily a bad thing. If a knife is a little bit heavier, I think you get more confidence in hand, and while you doing cutting tasks, especially the bigger cutting tasks, a little bit of weight is not necessarily a bad thing. But yeah, that's a thing you have to take into consideration. I'm gonna show you some lighter knives in a second here, but a lot of these bigger knives also do come with a lot more weight. Although I will say, in the recent years, we very rarely see any knives that are above that 5 ounce mark. So knives get a lot lighter these days. A lot of things are reduced in terms of the weight, and I think that's not a bad thing at all. Knives become more and more carryable, but yeah, like I said, there is some good things about having a heavier knife. The Cold Steel Recon 1 is a really popular 4-inch bladed knife. The good thing about the Recon 1, same goes for the Cold Steel Voyager, is that you have a variety of blade shapes to choose from. So you can get either of these knives in a more robust blade, so meaning you get more strength towards the tip, or you get more pointiness towards the tip of the clip points. So if you choose, for instance, a Recon 1 in a Tanto version, which I don't have here because I already sold mine, but yeah, if you choose a Tanto version, you get a stronger blade, and then the spear point or draw point is somewhat of a compromise between cutting and strength. And then with the clip point, you really focus on more on the slicing side of things. So it depends whether you want to have a big knife that's strong or you want to have a big knife that's slicey. Now I really like big knives that are slicey because I do most of the things I do require the knife to be very thin behind the edge and require it to be super thin, slicey, and with a nice precise tip you can do a lot of work. Yeah, but it depends on the occasion. Sometimes I really enjoy carrying like a stronger blade that I can lift some things apart and do a little bit more of the aggressive cutting. So yeah, it really depends on your taste. But yeah, the Cold Steel Voyager series and the Recon 1 series are probably the best series in terms of you can choose the same frame but different blade shapes depending on what you need. I think on my Voyagers I definitely carried the clip point more. At least the clips look like I carried the... Come on camera, what's up? The the clips look like I carried the clip point more. But sometimes I really enjoy the Tanto, and I think the Voyager, especially for the price to performance ratio, is really good here. The Recons lately were a little bit too expensive, I think, for what they are, but the Voyagers have been well priced for a long time. I remember when I bought these were like 70 euros. So really good price to performance ratio. OS 10A steel on these now, which is a really user-friendly steel, and it's a really good steel for a larger knife. But again, it depends if you want to have more edge retention or not. S35VN on the newer Recon certainly gives you more edge retention. In my opinion, the best Recons, I've said this before many times, were the XHP ones, because they featured the hollow grind not only on the Tanto but also on the clip point and spear point model. And hollow grinds give you more longevity. You can resharpen your knives more often, and they also are a little bit thinner than the flat ground blades that Cold Steel does. So yeah, I sold a lot of my Recons actually. I still have the clip point, and I still have my OS 8 spear point. The OS 8 still a serviceable steel. It's not the best in terms of edge retention, but you can find one of these knives really inexpensively on the secondary market, and they will last you a really long time. These Recons and these Voyagers, they hold up to quite some abuse. Now, Cold Steel also makes like knives like the 4max, which is also a 4-inch blade, and that gives you a lot more strength with the thickness here on the spine. But this knife is also super heavy. I don't know the weight on top of my head, but yeah, this knife is a tank, and it is a brick to carry. And yeah, I like this knife because it's super well built and it didn't cost much, and I think you get a lot of knife for not a lot of price. And but yeah, I just don't like to carry it really that often. So, but Cold Steel gives you quite a variety of strong knives. Triad lock on most of these Cold Steels, also really strong. On a bigger knife, you tend to want to have a stronger locking system. Now, Spyderco, on the other hand, oftentimes gives you really lightweight knives for a lot of cutting edge. The backlocks on these Spydercos are also really strong, so I think you will not in real life notice the difference between a Triad lock and the backlock from Spyderco in terms of strength. Because if you need that much of strength, you probably be snapping the blade anyway. So yeah, Spyderco makes some strong knives, and they make them really slicey, really thin behind the edge. The Spyderco Police is probably one of my favorite knives in the size range. Although this is slightly above the 4-inch mark. It's probably like 4.5 or 4.2 inches of blade length. It's really lightweight, it's really slim and easy to carry. I like this G10 version because it feels so high quality. This is out of production though, but this is VG10, Japanese made. I love VG10, it's a good steel, easy to resharpen, easy to take a hair popping sharp edge back. I was thinking about getting a Police 4 in K390 and FRN, because that FRN gives you more three-dimensional contouring in terms of the grip. So I think the FRN scales on the Police actually give you a more comfortable grip when doing the harder cutting. So yeah, even though these G10 with the polished back spring and everything, they look really nice, but they are probably not as comfortable as the FRN ones. But yeah, the Police, one of the greatest Spyderco models ever, and I think probably their best large model also. The military is also a really popular model from them. This one features a liner lock though, and this is a really strong liner lock. Probably the best liner lock that has been on the market for a long time. People give liner locks a bad rap, and I do too, because I have had a lot of liner locks fail during my use, but the military liner lock is just different. It's just much better made. The tolerances are tighter, it's much more secure, and the knife is super lightweight. They bring the military back, the military 2 with the they don't bring it back because it was never gone, but they came out with the compression lock military, and I don't like it as much because on a larger knife you want to have a more ergonomic grip, and the compression lock really takes away from the ergonomics. You always get these ramps on the compression locks, and they are really uncomfortable when doing the harder cutting task. So I don't like compression locks that much anymore personally. I really parted with compression locks this year, or last year I should say. But yeah, they are good, strong locking systems, but take into consideration that you lose a lot of that comfortableness in the grip when picking a compression lock knife in the size range. And like I said, with a bigger knife, you want to have a more comfortable grip. Now, yeah, military, also great knife, thin behind the edge, way thinner than a PM2. So is the Police. Great knife, highly can recommend it. Spyderco also does some of these ultralight large foley knives now. This is the Native Chief lightweight, which was released not too long ago. This knife is a little bit thicker behind the edge than the Police and the military. I'm not sure if that's because of the steel. Maybe there are some variations depending on what steel they use. But this is a lot thicker behind the edge. This is more like a PM2 behind the edge geometry. Yeah, in my video I thought this was a lot thinner because it cut so well, but I measured it and it's actually more like a PM2 in terms of the thickness behind the edge. But you get a nice fine point, good taper, and you get a super lightweight knife. This knife is even lighter than all of the other Spydercos in this size range. This weighs, I'm not sure how much this weighs actually, but it weighs like a much smaller knife. So yeah, it's a great size to weight ratio on this one. So if you need to go ultra lightweight, Spyderco has some options for you as well. There was a little bit of controversy in my Native Chief video about CTS BD1N, and yeah, I really want to find out more about the steel, use it more, test it more. But so far from my experiences with my Spyderco knives and the steel, I think it's a really well balanced steel and it holds up really nicely. But yeah, I will definitely do another video on the Native Chief lightweight in the future because I want to use it more and get the better feeling of it. But yeah, so far it's a good knife. Like I said, ultra lightweight. So Spyderco gives you more of these really lightweight knives. Cold Steel has one option in terms of really lightweight to large size knives, which is the Broken Skull, which is discontinued now, but they still make the Range Boss, which is the less expensive version of this one. And just a couple of differences. The blade has a stone wash, and then the scales are not cheap tin, but like Grivex or plastic scales, I think. And I think the steel on the cheaper one is, instead of XHP, they use probably like the 4116. I'm not too sure about that, but yeah, they use a steel that goes dull quicker, let's say like that. But still, this is a great knife, really good size to cutting edge ratio. If you have a look here, in comparison to the Recon one, has a lot more cutting edge, yeah. But also when you close them up, you can see they are about the same size. So the Broken Skull fits a lot more cutting edge into a lot smaller frame, both in the width, in the thickness of the scales, and also overall. So yeah, a lot easier to carry. If it's summer, I definitely carry the Broken Skull more. But if it's if I had to make the choice between a Recon 1 and a Broken Skull, or a Range Boss for that sake, I definitely always would go with the Recon 1, because I think this is the better knife to me personally. It just feels a little bit higher quality, it cuts better because it features a wider blade. So yeah, it goes a little bit thinner behind the edge and it slices better. So yeah, I certainly would pick the Recon 1. But if you want to go lightweight from Cold Steel, the Range Boss is a good budget option. Or if you find one of these older Broken Skulls, that gives you a little bit more edge retention. But personally, I wouldn't even mind. If I had the Range Boss instead of the Broken Skull, I wouldn't feel too bad about it, because yeah, for what I use it, I think the steel would be fine. Now, we already talked about carryability with these larger blades. And there are a lot of other options that are a little bit lighter weight and easier to carry. So most of the flipper knives in the size category, like this CT0452 CF here, is definitely in this category, because they are, in terms of their width and everything, the flippers in the size category are a lot easier to carry because they are not as wide and they are not as thick usually. So this has like the military thickness, but a lot less of an overall frame. But it still features a large 4-inch blade. You can see this one is a little bit more on the pointier stuff, so a little bit stabbier. This, for instance, is a great knife. I usually carry this when I'm in the city and I don't want to have a knife that prints hugely in the pocket and you don't see a lot of knives sticking out. But at the same time, you get a ton of cutting edge and you get a really stabby, kind of tactical knife. The frame lock is strong because you have your hand on the locking system, so therefore it gives you additional strength. Obviously a back lock is stronger, but when you have your hand on here, it's probably not as big of a deal. Yeah, the CT is really outdated in terms of the mechanism. It features like a plastic cage for the bearings in here, which CT should really update this knife because this knife has not been changed in the last 10 years, I think. And yeah, I think it's about time that they would give this some internal updates. But it's still a good knife. You can sometimes find this for a really good price, and yeah, I think they are still serviceable knives. The thickness here is a little bit thicker, so this is not so much a slicey knife, but more of a pointy and a little bit stronger in terms of its geometry. So yeah, but not a bad option in terms of the flipper. Another flipper that's really low profile is like the M48 from Medford, but that's a huge step up in price to the CT. The M48 is interesting because it has like a strong blade that's not too thick though, but it's still relatively strong. And then it features a really thinly ground, hollow ground blade. So it gives you, unlike the CT that only gives you strength, this also gives you strength and slicing at the same time. But you also pay more, obviously. But yeah, the weight is really low, the profile is really low, it carries deep, it carries it doesn't print very hugely, but it packs that big blade into this small little frame. So that's a really big advantage on most of these flippers, is that they give you just a much better overall profile. So if you like big knives but you don't like or if you like large knives, large blades, but you don't like big knives in your pocket, then these flippers are the way to go, I think. So yeah, great knife, the M48. Like I said, a little bit expensive. In one of my videos I also showed you the Jabu Scout, which is another high-end expensive flipper knife. This one has a lot softer detent than the M48, so like a super drop shitty action. This one feels more like a gentleman's carry. So if you like the larger knives but you want to be a little bit more classier, if you're wearing slacks for instance, then yeah, this is the knife to go. Yeah, hard to find though, these Jabukovs now, but yeah, not a bad option. Shirogorov makes a couple of knives in this size range, I think. And yeah, so you get also, there are a couple of high-end options in the 4-inch category, but not too many. Most of the 4-inch knives are more like dedicated work knives. And the interesting thing is there are some knives out there that have a small profile overall, but they are more, they're not flippers first of all, and they are more like hard use work knives. So the SOG knife, which is also a discontinued knife by now, is also really thin, slim and easy to carry, and also very lightweight, but it still features that large 4-inch blade with a nice recurve. I really like recurve blades. In this case, this is VG10, which is a perfect steel for a recurve blade, because you don't want to have a recurve blade in like M390 or something like that, because it's gonna be more difficult to resharpen, and VG10 is perfect to resharpen with like a rod or a Spyderco sharp maker. So you want to have a steel that's a little bit on the softer side. But yeah, recurves give you a big advantage in cutting. I really like recurve blades. There are not too many out there anymore. I think the Benchmade just announced that the 710 is gonna come back, which also features a 4-inch recurve blade. I'm excited to have a look at that. Hopefully the price is gonna be good. But yeah, these SOGs are no longer in production, so you can sometimes pick them up on the secondary market. This is the SOG Spec Arc, the SOG Spec Elite, and some of the Visionaries would be in that same in that same range of size and also looks. So yeah, I think it's really sad that SOG kind of lost their design language, but because they used to make a lot of these recurve blades with this unique design, and this certainly was one of their good knives. They made a lot of bad knives. They rebranded everything and came back with a different design, but to me the new design from SOG doesn't really speak to me. Doesn't matter how good the quality is, their design is just not as good looking anymore. So yeah, this old SOG design, perfect, and like I said, really slim and easy to carry. There are a couple of cheaper options in the large size category. For instance, Kershaw makes this CQC 4K XL, I think it's called, an Emerson design, which is more on the budget side, but it's also a little bit heavy and the quality is not too great. So mine, for instance, started rubbing, the blade started rubbing against the scales. Maybe you can hear that. But yeah, I can't adjust it. I have played around with the screws quite a bit. There are a couple of things you can normally do, but on this knife it somehow doesn't seem to be adjustable. So the quality on this one is not too great. The lock fails relatively easily unless you really have your hand on here. Steel is D2 in this case, and it also has a hollow grounded blade, but more of a robust blade rather than a slicey blade. And yeah, I just think the design is really beautiful. The lines on this knife are just really pretty, like on most Emersons, but the quality, sadly, from Kershaw is not the greatest. Kershaw makes some good knives, but a lot of their Chinese-made knives I don't think are really that great, to be honest. I think there are a lot of other Chinese manufacturers that give you a lot more quality for the price you pay. Speaking of Chinese manufacturers, I also have this concept Helix, I think it's called, or Helix, I don't know how you spell it, but yeah, it has a lot of oil on here because this is also D2, and I wanted to prevent corrosion because I stored it away and didn't use it anymore. This features a really wide blade that's really cool and interestingly looking. So a lot of the Chinese knives give you like some interesting designs that are a little bit more unique, but they most of the time feature some really cheap and really thin liner locks. So these knives will fail super easy when doing the harder things. Now, it depends what you use them for. If you are using that overly hard or just for cardboard slicing. But yeah, I would pick a lock that's a little bit stronger on a large knife. I think a large knife really needs a stronger locking system to really play out perfectly. But yeah, this one I picked up, I think, just because I liked the design, and it was really inexpensive at the time. So still is, I think. Concept Helix, whatever. Is that I think that's a Williams design, right? Who's the designer on these? Michael Williamson, yeah. You see him around these days quite a bit. He makes a lot of these budget options. Designs. CRKT has one of the most popular knife designs in this size range, which is the M16. The size also exists in the form of the M21, which is the recurve blade, which I simply picked up because I like the recurve blade. And I think the M16 in this size range is only available in a Tanto. But yeah, they usually make the spear point in like a smaller version. And this is a great design. Kit Carson really nailed this design. Probably one of the best 4-inch bladed designs, but not in terms of their execution. So CRKT really cheaped out on these. The liner lock is super weak, even with the additional locking system. If you want to see that, you can watch my video on this knife. It fails super easily, the quality is super low, heat treatment is really shit, the steel sucks quite a bit, loses its edge really quickly, it's hard to resharpen. Yeah, there are so many things that are wrong with these CRKTs. CRKT is really a brand that I have parted from a long time ago. I just buy their knives if I really like the design and I just want to experience the design. But yeah, in terms of quality, even though these are made in Taiwan and not in China, which doesn't mean anything, China has some really good knives out there, but yeah, CRKT is a really bad company. I think the knives are also horribly overpriced. And yeah, so many things can be said about CRKT that are not right, but I'm gonna do that in a different video probably. But in terms of design, I think the M16 was probably one of the best 4-inch bladed designs ever made. Kit Carson did a great job. I really like his lines. Would love to get a custom of him one day, which are obviously hard to find because he is no longer with us. But yeah, don't buy a CRKT if you're looking for a larger knife. I would definitely go with another brand than CRKT. Yeah, one other very iconic knife in this size range is the Spyderco, the Microtech Socom. Super good design on this one. Really elegant looking, really tactical at the same time. Super simple lines. There are so many features that are really good about this. The external thumb studs, so the knife locks up really strong from the outside. Not external thumb studs, but external stop pins, I should rather say. Although I think this knife even features 2 stop pins, one on the inside and one on the outside. But yeah, the external stop pins also serve as thumb studs. Really oversized thumb studs as well, so really easy to use it with gloves. Aluminium scales, so really hard use, you can beat on this knife. The lock is not the strongest, but it's way better than most liner locks, so it's a lot stickier, which is a good thing because this knife doesn't fail as easily. The only bad thing about this knife really here is the thick geometry. So it features like almost a 5mm, it's like a 4.8mm blade. So naturally the geometry is super thick. It's really thin behind the edge, so right behind the edge is super thin, but then it thickens up really quickly, which leads to a very wedge-like geometry. So this means the knife gets stuck a lot in cardboard, for instance. It doesn't really sail through things, it gets stuck quite easily. So I think Microtech really had a better design with the old Socom that was a lot thinner in the blade stock and also a lot thinner behind the edge. The M390 from Microtech is also one of the worst M390s you can probably buy on the market, at least the ones that I have experienced this. They lose their edge super quickly, the heat treatment is shit, and yeah, I really preferred the old 154 cm ones because those were properly heat treated. The only bad thing with the old ones were that they had a soft detent and the blade would constantly fall out of the handle, which obviously, as you can imagine, is a bad thing for a tactical knife, because if you're running, the knife opens in your pocket. That's not too great. But yeah, in terms of design, outstanding design. Hopefully the Microtech Socom will always be around because it's such an iconic design. I still love the newer version. Even though it has some heat treatment problems, I think it's still a great, very well put together American made knife, and it's a lot cheaper than some of the other high-end knives in this in this category. And yeah, just a great design. I really liked my Microtech Socom. I will probably never sell this, even though it's not the best slicer. It's more of a robust thing, but yeah, it's a good knife. There is, or I should say there was, because this is also discontinued, there was a good competitive option from Benchmade, which was called the Benchmade Contigo, and Baron Osborne design, super thick blade also on this one, but super thin geometry. They pulled up the grind way higher than on the Microtech, and it's a lot thinner behind the edge. And in comparison, it's also please focus camera. It's also very well heat treated CPM M4 steel in comparison to bad heat treat M390. So yeah, naturally the M4 here is a big step up because of the better heat treatment here. Cutting edge is also slightly bigger, and both of these feature a glass breaker. So yeah, both of these are very unique in a sense that they can be used as like rescue knives or car knives. And yeah, in terms of performance, the Benchmade Contigo is certainly the better knife because it slices better. But yeah, it's also a discontinued model, which is kind of sad because some of the really good knives are discontinued now. But yeah, hopefully it comes back, or a similar option comes back. But yeah, very aggressive G10 scales on this one. Super thin grind, like I said. Baron Osborne design, the same guy who designed the 940. So this is like the bigger brother, and yeah, unique blade style on this one. Very robust to the tip also, so you get a lot of strength here and then a lot of slicing here. I really like this knife. Probably also not gonna sell this soon or any times, I would say, because this is just a great traveling knife because of the glass breaker, and it's also a good performer. Anything that I didn't mention yet? Yeah, I think in terms of it really depends what you're looking for in a large knife. If you want to have more of a lightweight and slicey option, I think most of these Spydercos are gonna be a really good option for you. I would recommend you the Spyderco Police or the Military. I think both of these are really great. And in terms of having a little bit of a stronger knife, I can recommend you the Voyager series or the Recon 1 series. The Recon also, like I said, if you pick up a clip point, you get slicing and strength at the same time. These are also really good options. These four right here are probably the best options in that size range. Yeah, they are just, if you want to have lightweight Spyderco, if you want to have a little bit of stronger blades, then cold steel is a good option. In terms of tactical knives, I think a lot of these are actually quite serviceable as last defense options. And yeah, there are some knives that stick out though. For instance, the Voyager used to be available in the Vaquero blade shape, which is a nasty performing blade, both against materials but also against humans, I guess. So this is a great tactical knife. Discontinued by now, which you also said, but it was super high performance in terms of the tactical side of things. Spyderco Yojimbo is an outstanding tactical knife. This really outcuts a lot of other blade shapes. Not so much of the stabbing kind of geometry here, but more of the slashing geometry. Yeah, I don't know if I really like the Yojimbo that much overall. I think it has some flaws to it. It's really wide, it's heavy. I think it doesn't need to be as big to give you the same kind of performance. But the Warncliffe blade is a huge, is like a huge really well performer in this kind of category. So yeah, depending on what you like and what you want to have, but I think the best options that you have on the market in terms of the 4-inch bladed knives are gonna be the Spyderco Police and Military and the Cold Steel Voyager and Recon 1. At least that's my experience. Depending on what you like, maybe you want to have even a lighter, thinner carry, then one of these flippers that I showed you is also not a bad option. But yeah, it really depends or it comes down to on what you're looking for, what kind of performance you're looking for. But yeah, all of these are great options in the end, and most of these, not all of them, but most of these. Yeah. So yeah, I think in my next couple videos I definitely will do a couple of videos on some other knives. I want to do a lot of videos on a 3.5-inch sized knives, but I will also mix some fixed blade in there to get some variety. The channel also reached 1,000 subscribers, which is insane. I would have never expected that many people would watch these videos. But yeah, this is not a full-time job for me, not even a job at all, because I'm not getting paid. This channel is not monetized at all. Probably also not gonna be in the future, because YouTube is really strict now, a lot stricter than before with the monetizing. And if I ever monetize my videos, or if I ever get sent stuff from companies to review them, I will definitely let you know. So far, everything I do is my own opinion, and if I will ever get paid to say something, I will definitely tell you guys, because I'm usually really honest with my reviews about knives. But yeah, I really hate that when YouTubers get like a contract with a company and they say everything about their knives is good. I don't know. Why would I watch these videos? It really doesn't make any sense to me. Thank you guys for watching. Maybe we see each other in another video, and goodbye people.